Hey everybody, good evening. It's Monday, August 29th, 2016. We're here, Sam Cohen, Jay Friday, and Sean Mayo. We're here to talk about all the craziness that's been going on the last couple of weeks, and we just wanted to clear the air on what is actually happening and what is not happening with all the recent changes, and I'm sure all the social media drama that's been going on, all the brand restrictions, and what's actually happening and what's actually not happening. So, Jay, you want to go ahead and
Yeah, absolutely. So first and foremost, we want to start off by saying, you know, everybody, and I mean this universally, needs to take a deep breath and step back and look at what they're actually seeing. Have been talking a lot about this on our mastermind group and in our public group. Uh, there's a lot of information flying around right now. You don't know where the source of that information is for the most part, and that means you don't know what's good information and bad information. I keep hearing, everybody losing their minds at this list of brand restrictions, and I've gone through different lists of these brand restrictions. First of all, the biggest list that I found includes all brands, not just all brands in any one category, but all brands, period, is 200, and this is not the end-all be-all list, this was just the biggest one I could find, was 220 brands. Now, there's literally hundreds of millions of products on Amazon. There are thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of brands on Amazon. We're talking about less than 0.5% of those brands actually being restricted. And the new brand restrictions that everybody is talking about and going around with the price of entry, I know I have seen some of that information has absolutely come from Amazon. That being said, I don't know a single person who's actually been restricted on almost any of those brands. We tested every one of those brands, and the only ones we're not currently one that we're not currently allowed to sell is Pokemon, uh, and that's more of a license restriction, I would say, than a brand restriction. But you have Nike on that list. I can't tell you how many clients we have that are all selling Nike. We're still selling Nike. Now the Jordan restriction did come down. We talked about that last week. We had the blog post about that last week. We definitely saw a handful of sellers who got that Jordan notice, a big handful of sellers. That being said, currently they're all still able to sell their Jordans and liquidate their stock. We have liquidated our stock in anticipation of that. I can't guarantee that won't go restricted, but at the moment, they could still send in new Jordans if they wanted to. I wouldn't recommend that because if Amazon sends you a performance notification that says, hey, you shouldn't be selling these items anymore, even if the system will let you, you should stop selling those items. But that comes back to account health. Adidas came down at the same time, and we were just talking about this before. It was very clear with the Adidas that they were only restricting Adidas in the sports and outdoor category. We've seen some of those Adidas back for sale again, clothing and shoes. They're just not in the sports and outdoor category anymore. They're in the proper category, and people are able to send in inventory for them. So, we don't know what happened with those restrictions, where they came down from. It was obviously very timely with the blog post from Cynthia talking about the future of Amazon. We talked about that where extensively at the time that it happened. We even did the big blog post. We don't think the end is nigh. We don't see the sky falling. We've been seeing the exact same information coming from Cynthia for years. I don't think she had any negative or ill intent. We firmly believe that comes from how she comes at this business from. For those of you who don't know, Cynthia Stein is one of the foremost names in people who get suspended sellers back in business, and she runs a whole suspension prevention business. And she comes at this business seeing the darkest side of this business. She comes at it seeing sellers who are currently out of business and helps them get back in business. And in my opinion, that certainly skews her view to think, Amazon could suspend you for any reason at any time, and everything is dangerous. And if you've ever seen her speak at a conference, everything she said in that blog post she's said before. This just happened to come out and make a big, viral splash, and then within a couple of days we see the restriction notifications on the Adidas and the Jordans, and now we see a ton of sellers losing their minds, and I mean sellers of all sizes. Big sellers with groups who are telling their groups not to sell, not to do RA or OA anymore, to sit on the sidelines and wait out the storm, or people who had buying lists and are stopping the buying list because they're afraid that those products aren't viable anymore. I said this many times on our mastermind as we've talked to a lot of our clients. If Amazon doesn't tell you you can't sell something, don't let any other seller tell you you can't sell something. You don't know where that information comes from. You don't know what their motivation is in sharing that information. Amazon will tell you what you are and are not allowed to sell. Did you have something to add, Sam? Or
Yeah, I just wanted to say, we on Amazon themselves. Unless Amazon tells you you can't sell something, then you can sell it. So, if a company sends you a cease and desist, or you hear rumors on Facebook that a brand is restricted, if Amazon doesn't tell you you can't sell it, then you can sell it. We just got a performance notification, Jay. I don't know if you saw this today. Ike and I were dealing with it. It says we recently updated the approval requirements to sell current season Under Armour apparel on our platform. Under this new policy, your existing offers will be removed from the website. So Ike and I decided earlier today that we're going to set all the current season Under Armour to break even, and we liquidated the inventory until further notice. So we're not naive in that we're not responding to anything that's going on, but we're also not jumping off of bridges and the sky is not falling, and we're not panicking, and we're not changing our overall philosophies and strategies. We are going to be more diligent in what we buy and make sure it's not restricted. Most of our retail arbitrage and online arbitrage guys are already doing that, and they know which brands to double check, like if it's Under Armour or Mizuno or something that's quasi-restricted. They're pretty much checking them anyway. And they'll be more careful going forward with Adidas and Nike and some of the other brands. But there's so many brands out there. And we just came back from Magic in Las Vegas, and we probably spent about $500,000 in wholesale shoe orders, which we're going to be sharing with the ACE clients that are part of the retail store. And we got nothing but great response from the manufacturers because we have a brick and mortar store. So if anything, sourcing is going to get a lot easier, not a lot harder. We may have to change sourcing methods, and we may have to do things differently than we've done in the past, but people are literally like state of panic, not a healthy way to run a business. You're going to end up making bad decisions with bad information, and it's going to end badly. So we don't want any of our clients or any Amazon sellers, for that matter, to do that. Sean, what do you have to add to this?
Basically, a whole lot of the same thing. We've been advising our clients basically the same way. The sky isn't falling. We have a pretty complete list of the restrictions that, we've been updating, sometimes hourly on our website. And of course, it's still only a few hundred items, and there's hundreds of thousands of brands out there around the world. And we did get a couple, notices, same thing with Under Armour and, Adidas and nothing for Nike or, a lot of the other ones that people are complaining about, even, we're pretty heavy in toys and, of course, grocery and health and beauty. We haven't seen a single thing in health and beauty or grocery or, any of the replenishable type items that, we sell a ton of. Even things like Lego, everything we've tried to sell for Lego, we're still able to continue to sell. And we haven't gotten any notice saying that we can't sell those items. So, for the time being, we're going to continue to sell them, as you said, until Amazon tells us otherwise. We're seeing that a lot of our clients are able to sell some brands, and some are now restricted. So I'm assuming it has something to do with the amount of time that you've been selling on Amazon, or your history with those brands, at least for now. And as some people said in the chat already, that may be changing, but for now, we're not going to change our business unless Amazon, tells us that there's something wrong. And we have about 2,000 different SKUs. Of course, we don't sell anywhere as much as Sam does, but we have about 2,000 different SKUs that are live, and we're not investing a major portion of our business into any one brand. And really, selling on Amazon, you shouldn't be. You should be spreading those items out. We find hundreds and hundreds of new products almost every day, and we're not buying 1,000 or 100 of any of them. We buy a few of each item we find and spread it out across the board. And if we're not able to sell that item, it's not going to cost our business. And you shouldn't be doing anything that buying one single product is going to cost, the livelihood of your business, based on a single product or a single brand.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note that we don't overexpose ourselves with any one brand or any one SKU. It has to do with asset allocation and managing money. If you have $1 million, you're not going to bet it all on one item. You're going to spread the risk in a fast-growing market like Amazon or like the stock market, and you're going to want to go with an index fund or something where it spreads the risk across multiple items. The same thing applies here. We don't go very deep on an item unless we're absolutely sure that it's a grand slam. So when we sold, 60,000 of the Lorax DVD, we knew it was a grand slam. When we sell thousands of Harry Potter DVDs, we know it's a grand slam. When we sold Pie Face, we knew it was a grand slam. There's certain things you just know, but for the most part, we buy very wide as opposed to very deep. We've upped our average selling price, which has lowered our units processed and units shipped, which obviously lowered our labor costs and simultaneously improved our ROI and our margins. So we're doing things where our average selling price is closing in on $50, where it used to be closer to $14. So it's things like that that are helping us grow the business strategically rather than just, buying tons of one item that may go restricted.
The other thing that I think is important to note with this is when Amazon makes something harder to do, that's not necessarily a bad thing. One of the things that draws us to different things is the barrier for entry. We love oversized because Amazon has made it harder for sellers to sell oversized because of the inbound shipping. We found a way to make it work by shipping pallets, and because of that, we see less saturation on our oversized than on anything else. The higher the barrier for entry, the fewer other sellers you're going to see doing the same thing, and that's going to be good for everybody because that means that there's more to go around. And that comes back to if they start making it harder to get into a category. Sean is big in grocery and health and personal and beauty, and for the past 8 months, they've had those categories locked down. It has been not impossible, but much, much harder to get into those categories than it used to be. And I would wager that has had an impact on those categories where you're seeing fewer sellers and certainly fewer newer sellers who are coming in and saturating listings and tanking prices. We don't do a ton in those categories because it doesn't fit our business model, but we've certainly seen it other places. And that can all be to your benefit. Everybody always looks at the negative aspect of, it will be harder to do something. If they restrict Nike, we won't be able to sell Nike. What are we going to do? Even if you're dead set on shoes like we are, there's hundreds of other brands, and so many of them are profitable, and so many of them move maybe not as quickly as Nike, but certainly quickly. And if Nike did disappear off Amazon, who knows what impact that would have on the other brands on Amazon, but we don't believe that's going to happen. Amazon is not Amazon without Nike.
By the way, we sold over 8,000 pairs of shoes last month. This month, actually, for over $500,000. And the majority of them were not Nike. So just to put that in perspective, I would venture to say 90% of them were not Nike. So there's hundreds of brands that we're selling. I'm going to see if we can put together a list of all the brands and the shoes that we've sold in the last month, so people have an idea of what to look for.
For our clients.
Clothing is huge as well, and just wanted to throw that out there. Also, if you go into a retail store and you're able to get.
Sam, it's hard to hear you.
Can you hear me now?
You're kind of dipping in and out.
I'm going to kill someone. All right. If you go into a retail store and you're getting 23.5% off, it's not hard to find items to make money on. Like we're doing with TJ Maxx and Marshalls right now. We're selling pots and pans. We're selling anything with a healthy margin. So the brand itself is not paramount to making money on Amazon.
It's very difficult to hear you, Sam.
So what Sam is saying is it's not hard to make money on other brands on Amazon. There's no one brand that should be or is your business. We have our business spread around multiple brands in multiple categories, and they all sell very well if you're sourcing correctly. He mentioned retail arbitrage, being able to go out to Marshalls. We're not just buying Nike at Marshalls. We're buying, 20, 50, 100 different brands of different types of items at Marshalls. And they're all moving very well because we can buy them at the right price with everything that we put together, and because we know how to source them. This actually brings me to another very key point of this that I think is probably one of the worst things that's getting misconstrued in this whole ordeal. Don't presume one thing means another thing. I consistently am seeing people say that Amazon won't accept retail receipts or online receipts anymore because they don't accept them for ungating. Now, I know briefly they did accept them for ungating for grocery and health and personal and beauty, but they have not accepted them for those categories since last year. Other categories, they never accepted them. If you wanted to get unrestricted in a license or a brand, they never accepted retail receipts, they never accepted online receipts, and they never accepted an Amazon order to get ungated. Once you were ungated, you were always free to sell those items, and we have used Amazon orders, we've used receipts from retail outlets, we've used online order invoices to answer performance notifications and as proof of purchase when we do our shipment reconciliation and a number of other ways, and we've never ever had an issue with that. I've only had one seller tell me they ever had an issue using a retail receipt for one of these notifications, and that I would explain as the margin of agent. Everything we do on Amazon is agent specific. One agent will review your approval to get ungated and deny you, and the next agent will review the exact same information and approve you. Everything we do on Amazon is reviewed by an agent who's a human being, and a certain percentage of that is always going to be agent specific, and there's always going to be some level of agent error or whoever that agent is factoring into their decision. I know there's some talk here in the chat about retail receipts and whether or not you'd be able to use them. We would not do retail arbitrage if you could not submit a retail receipt for a performance notification. We don't shop at thrift shops. We don't go garage sailing. We don't buy from eBay. We don't buy from Amazon third-party sellers. We don't buy anywhere where we don't have a good receipt because we're not going to risk our business on that. There's no amount of profit on one item that's going to be worth risking our whole business. And we still do retail arbitrage. We still do online arbitrage. We are still doing a very high number of Amazon to Amazon flips because you can and have no issue still using those receipts, invoices, and order numbers to prove authenticity of a product, to prove that it was new and not used condition. Those rules have not changed.
Something to add to that, though, is that you have to have legitimate store receipts, either from online or buying at retail. So I do get a lot of receipts for our other businesses that aren't acceptable. You can't go to a liquidator and buy 2 pallets of grocery and then expect to be able to submit that. And it's the same thing with retail. A lot of retail stores may not have the UPC or a good description. If there's a good description or a UPC or some kind of descriptor that they're going to be able to look those items up, then you're not going to have a problem. We've had a lot of clients, as well as Sam and Jay have, that have been able to use these. Of course, not for ungating, but any kind of restrictions. You're not going to get suspended if you can prove somehow that those are really the items. And if you have a good receipt or some kind of invoice that has a correct description. You can't just use any receipt from anywhere you buy. But if you do have that correct description, or of course the UPC on there is what you would hope for, but not all retail stores are going to do that.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Also, for what this is worth, I know there's a lot of information flying around about Amazon's opinion on this. I know people came back from the women's conference and have heard different things from different VPs, people who we know and sellers who we respect and whose opinions we trust and value have told us that some VPs are telling them definitely the tides are changing in different ways on Amazon. That doesn't surprise me in a lot of areas. We've seen a huge influx of fraudulent goods making it onto Amazon in the past, I want to say year, could be closer to 2 years. And obviously Amazon has to stem the tide of that. When you look at Amazon's goal, Amazon, from everything we can see, Amazon has always wanted to be the everything store, and they've always wanted to be thought of as the lowest price, because that's what draws customers to search for a product on Amazon before they search for a product on Google. And if they, have any kind of high a high percentage of fraud, they slowly but surely turn into eBay, which is definitely not what they want to do. Sorry, I thought somebody had something to add. Anyway, so there's definitely, no one is saying that Amazon is not changing. No one is saying that Amazon won't continue to change, and we will have to continue to grow and adapt with them. But the concept of shutting something, of them shutting something down that has helped make them who they are, just does not track with everything we know. We have our own reps at Amazon. They don't seem to have one finite answer, so different people will give you different information, even from Amazon. Amazon has always had an issue of one hand not necessarily knowing what the other is doing, depending on who you're talking to. That being said, a lot of the advice, with the exception of the advice of stop doing OA or RA, that has been going around is good advice. Diversifying what you're doing and always reassessing what you're doing to make sure you're staying diverse. Just like Sam said, we, even at our size, even at our volume, we stay very wide. We keep low quantities of most of the things that we sell across multiple brands, multiple styles, multiple categories. We keep a balance of some quick turning merchandise, some long-term turning merchandise, some high average sale prices, some lower average sale prices. You have to have that balance to really continue to grow, and to make sure that as Amazon grows and adapts and changes, you'll be able to grow and adapt and change with them.
Is Monica Busby here?
Sam, you can barely.
Nobody can hear you.
I can hear you.
Hi.
Hey, Monica, how are you?
Great. Just guys.
Monica, were you at the women's conference?
No, I didn't make it out there. I think I signed in too late.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so we heard from a lot of clients about the women's conference. Maybe we can get Sarah on, Mendy and Sarah. Yeah, so we're hearing a lot of different things from different Amazon reps. So I don't think they have a clear-cut answer of what's going on right now, and I don't think this is going to be the end-all, be-all. The main purpose of this was to filter out the counterfeits, and what I can't understand is why they opened the floodgates to China to begin with, because this was inevitable. But now they're trying to stem the tide of counterfeits, and we're all feeling the brunt of it. But anybody who's been selling on Amazon for more than 6 months or a year knows that this is standard operating procedure for Amazon. Every 3 to 6 months, there's some shakeups, and it all levels out, and we all, continue to make money and live happily ever after. So anybody who wants to jump ship, you're free to do so, but you'll be doing it to your own detriment. I know our clients are trusting us to move them forward and help them be profitable this year. And I'm sure there's other people that are watching and listening that are apprehensive about moving forward in this business. It's still the greatest platform in the world, still the greatest business in the world. Um, you know, I don't have an agenda here. We're just telling it like we see it. The fact that we do consulting for Amazon sellers plays no part in my opinion here. Um, just don't want people to make bad decisions with bad information.
Sam, can you fix your microphone because a lot of people are having extreme complications here in AD.
Yeah, so I have multiple microphones, and I'm not sure what the issue is.
Can you unplug one so you only have the Yeti?
Yeah, the Yeti is the one that's not working.
Maybe because the other one's plugged in.
So is that better or worse?
Talk again.
Is that better or worse?
It was better right until you said or, but then it came back pretty quickly.
So it's using the microphone on the computer, which sucks. And I apologize. I thought we had this fixed with the Yeti.
One quick thing, and then we'll just move on because I don't want to spend time on this. But unplug the Yeti and plug it back in, and the computer should prompt you to choose that as the microphone, hopefully. If your other microphone's not already plugged in, and then hopefully that will be significantly better.
The other microphone is part of a webcam.
Oh, gotcha.
I've been trying to disable it. Sean, you have any words of wisdom here?
Yeah, if you click on the gear up at the top, it'll let you choose which video and which microphone, what speakers you want.
Can you hear me now?
Whatever if you're using the Yeti, you might want to just switch over to the webcam or vice versa. I'm not sure what you may have.
That's what I did. It didn't work. You guys carry on. I'll play around with the tech support here.
Why don't we have Ike at your house right now? You know the rules.
After 5 p.m.
Yeah, but it's Monday. No class, no things on Monday.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, just to get us back on track, Sam will hopefully be able to get his microphone fixed. But like he said, I touched on this earlier with knowing that some of the information out there, may or may not, who knows what's motivating it, if it's just people who are scared or, I'm sure there are some sellers out there who have their own agenda and are trying to get people off of their listings. In either event, you have to be careful where the information is coming from. Our only agenda here is to try to inform. We do have the consulting business, like you said, but we teach every aspect of Amazon in our consulting business. So whether you're doing OA and RA or strictly wholesale or private label, that's all things that we do, and not one is any more important than the other. I don't think that there's anyone that's better than the other. One of the things that our clients have probably heard me say a couple of hundred times now is every form of arbitrage in this business has its own pros and its own cons, and ultimately you should be balancing them against one another. So that comes right back to what we're saying about keeping diversified. Ultimately, your business should always be building towards diversification from wherever you start. I think the focus here is, like I said, be careful with the information that's out there. Don't make business decisions out of fear. If Amazon isn't telling you something, then it's not. If it's not Amazon, it's not the Bible. You know what I mean? You can't take it to heart unless Amazon's selling you. You can't sell something. I think if nobody else has anything to add, we'll open this up to some Q&A. I'm sure we have a ton of questions. Do you want to add anything before we open up some Q&A, Sean?
No, I'm good. I'm ready to answer some questions.
All right, so Irene, if you want to start to, if everybody wants to start asking some questions, Irene will go ahead and bring them over, and we'll see if we can get some good information out there.
And go for the top.
I can't promise that we'll get to everyone's questions. I know there's a lot of you guys watching today, but we'll get to as many as we can.
Sarah Gordon says, why doesn't Amazon publicize changes instead of causing a frenzy? Eric Steinberg said, hold on 1 second, my computer. Sorry, guys. Arlene McGurk says, best way to plan for Q4 toys?
Same as it ever was. Whatever you've been doing normally. We haven't seen. There's a handful of toys that have been, or licenses, I really should say, that have been added to this restriction list. I mentioned Pokemon. We are actually restricted from selling Pokemon right now. So just make sure you're doing your extra due diligence to make sure that you're able to sell anything you're sourcing. That being said, I only think I saw a handful of restrictions in the toy category, and I would not expect to see Amazon restricting much during Q4 unless it's a high fraud alert. Similar to Frozen, the year that the Frozen movie came out, or Star Wars last year. If they know something is going to either have a high fraud potential, or if they see a lot of fraudulent inventory hit the market, they are very likely to restrict that license or that brand. Also, to add to that, with that, there were a lot of sellers who were able to sell Frozen if they had a good track record. Account health is of utmost importance. We have always told that to our clients. You should make sure that you're taking good care of your account health, answering all of your performance notifications, and making sure buyer messages never sit, and a handful of other things that you do to keep your account health clean. But Q4 really shouldn't be any different from anything that you're doing in Q1, 2, or 3 as far as this is concerned. And with certain exception, I really wouldn't expect to see many, big restrictions across the board in the toy category.
There are things like Pie Face which have become restricted. There may be some other games where they're highly counterfeited, which may become restricted restricted. So obviously you can check the Amazon Seller app. You can check Profit Bandit, and you can do edit product on Amazon. Those are the best ways. And obviously, if we hear anything, we'll post it in the Ace Mastermind group. Sean has a very comprehensive list of what's restricted, both with regards to brands and ingredients. Um, Sean,
Yeah,
how
you
does he have access to that?
right. Okay. Yeah, if you want to see our list, it's on our. We have a mastermind membership site. It's completely free. It's free courses and all that. But our list, you can get a free account on there. Just go to SeanMayo.com, and you can get and you can see the whole list. It's broken down by application fees, if there's any application fee, like Nike and Lego, and there's a few dozen that we found that have the fee if you get approved. And it's broken down by category as well, and also has a lot of banned ingredients you may not know about, and especially in beauty and the health categories, there's a ton of stuff in there that you just can't, you're not supposed to be selling, but a lot of products contain them, and Amazon just hasn't caught up with it. So it's, there's a lot of stuff in there that you're not going to see in any other lists of black products, because we have a lot of ingredients as well that's, really important to know about.
Eric Love asks, any word on retail store being able to get us authorized letters / invoices to give to Amazon?
Yeah, so that's going to work with certain brands. It's not going to work with every brand. Jay, maybe you can.
I wouldn't expect a very high rate of success with that. There are not a ton of brands. I don't even know any off the top of my head. I can find out and get that information. For the most part, if particularly the brands that have gone restricted are not very reseller friendly, so they're not inclined to provide you with a list of, a letter, allowing you to sell on the website. A lot of them, I'm sure, have no idea whether or not they're even authorized to do that. For the most part, to get that letter, you have to go through the brand, which again is not something that's going to be very common. Your best bet is probably going to be to find an authorized distributor who doesn't care that you sell on Amazon and is able to provide the letter that they're authorized to sell those products to you. Even that, though, is going to be a little bit hit or miss with Amazon.
Karen Rutenberg says, so are you saying to use the Amazon app to see if the item is restricted for us?
That's a good option. Keep in mind, though, that right now, as these restrictions are flying and some of them are not hitting the way a regular restriction is, it won't always be accurate. You're occasionally going to find an item that does not come up restricted for you on the seller app. And then when you go to put it on an inbound shipment, they'll let you know at that point that you can't send it in. Even more rare than that, but certainly possible, there are going to be times when they'll let you ship it inbound to Amazon and it will get there and never go live. It'll just go into your stranded inventory. And when you try to relist it, it's going to come up as blocked, and it's going to be restricted. If you don't deal with brands that have partial restrictions, like Under Armour, which has seemed to increase their restrictions significantly, or Mizuno, or some of these brands that have only restricted specific ASINs, you probably shouldn't run into that a ton. But it's certainly possible. Each one of these steps will keep you from buying a portion of those goods. I can't guarantee that following those steps will mean you'll never have that happen. When it does happen, your best course of action is to find the least time-intensive way to, get your capital back or resolve the issue. Hopefully, it should not happen to you on a lot of SKUs or on a lot of inventory, because you're staying wide and not deep on those. And wide translates differently to different categories. In toys, wide means staying, 5 to 10 deep is considered pretty wide. In clothing and shoes, you can go 1 deep or 2 deep, but you're going 1 to 2 deep on 10 different sizes. Now you actually have 20 of that style of shoe, and you have to stay wide with that as well. Because if they do come in and restrict a specific style, they're going to restrict every size. So make sure that you understand what wide means in your category, and limit your risk.
Jerry Marlowe says, "Are you still buying Nike shoes?"
We are still buying Nike shoes. We have begun to liquidate our Jordans, and we're not going to buy new Jordans until we have more information on that in the shoe category. That being said, as much as we are continuing to buy Nike, and we haven't slowed that down, we are actively working to strengthen our relationships with some of the other shoe brands that we buy from. So some of the other outlets that we go to, and some of the other web, obviously you can't strengthen the relationship, but we're buying more from some of the other websites that we buy from, and from some of the wholesalers that we have accounts with, so that if Nike does go restricted, we're not going to be left with, no way to spend that capital that we've been spending on Nike.
I also just want to add, if anyone could hear me, these are very seller specific. So what may be restricted for one seller is not restricted for another seller. We've had no restrictions on our account, and we've had clients who've had many restrictions on their account, and we've heard from many different people. We're not restricted in Nike, we're not restricted in Adidas, we're not restricted in Lego, but we are aware that some people are getting restricted. We're not sure if it goes by the size of the account or the amount of units sold, but whatever it is, we know that it's not universal for all sellers. That being said, we did take our Jordans and our Adidas and we liquidated at break even or 20% profit margin, just so we have more information, and we'll continue to do that until the water gets clearer.
Jay, can you repeat what Sam said?
I sure can. What Sam said was that, now I should have been listening better. He said that basically the restrictions are not universal. A lot of these restrictions seem to be on a case-by-case basis. We haven't seen any of these restrictions on our account except for the one in Pokemon. We know some other people are actually seeing restrictions on things like Lego. There's some that are on this list, or some of these lists that have been passing around, that we don't know a single seller who's actually restricted on. We do know a handful of sellers who got the Jordan letter. We know, obviously, a good number of sellers, and ourselves did see a couple of Adidas ASINs restricted. But for the most part, we are not seeing these big sweeping restrictions that everybody is afraid of. And as far as we can tell, if these lists are accurate, it is on a case-by-case basis. We don't know what the metric Amazon is using to determine spend it on. Hold on. Somebody just muted me and unmuted me several times. Who does get suspended and who does not get suspended. I'm sure they have some complicated algorithm that we'll never understand, like for the buy box. But what we can say is keep your nose clean, keep your account clean, and do as much as you can do until Amazon tells you not to. But if they tell you not to, even if they don't physically restrict it, listen. That's part of keeping your nose clean too. Did I miss anything, Tim?
Tashima Lindsay says, if you pay the fee, are there additional requirements to be approved?
From my understanding, and again, we don't actually know any seller who has been restricted and gone through the process of paying the fee and getting ungated. But from my understanding, you would have to pay the fee, and first you would have to get ungated, and then you would pay the fee. So you would still need either, most likely a letter from the wholesaler or distributor, or several invoices with the proper quantities from the proper distributor or proper manufacturer to get ungated, and then they would charge you a non-refundable fee for the privilege of selling that brand, if that actually comes to pass, or if that's ever actually becomes a real thing.
Right. So the restrictions, the fee is to be able to sell. It's not an application fee. You don't have to pay just to apply, but once they accept your invoices, or I've seen it a little different on a few different pages. So whatever it is that they're requesting from you, you're going to have to pay that once they approve it before you're able to sell. So it's not like getting an apartment, you have to give them $200 just to apply. It's a fee to be allowed to sell the products, not a fee to ask them to sell the products. But you still need that other information, submitted and approved along with the fee.
Oh my, can you hear me?
We can now.
I had it on mute talking the whole time. I apologize. If Richard Santos asks, if we buy from distributors such as EE, is that going to be an issue as well with brands like Funko, for example?
I mean, it depends on A, whether or not Funko actually ends up restricted, and B, whether or not EE can provide you a letter saying that they are an authorized distributor of Funko from Funko. Yeah.
Okay. Do you know, Karen Rutenberg asks, do you know of any sellers who have paid this fee?
I don't even know any seller who's been asked to pay this fee. I know I've seen a buyer, I want to say it was a buyer message. It may have been a performance notification. It was a screenshot that a seller sent to me where it actually showed the fee for one of the brands. I can't remember which brand, but it was a brand that they were actively selling and could still send in inventory of, and they had not been blocked from selling that brand. And the notification that they received did not tell them that they could not sell the brand until they paid the fee. So I don't know a seller who has paid it. I also don't know any seller who has incurred the need to pay the fee.
Lena Wasserman asks, what percentage of your business is wholesale, RA, and OA now?
I mean, for us, I can tell you that is a constantly shifting number. We try to keep it as balanced as possible. For the most part, we try to keep it into active almost thirds, with another percentage of our business making up our private label and our international to a lesser degree. But it shifts, and it shifts based on a number of different reasons. Right now, we're heading into Q4. It's obviously going to shift away from wholesale and heavier into retail arbitrage. But for the most part, these shifts are always based on either our business plan, our plan of action, and the directions that we're moving our business in based on our numbers, or necessity. For example, over the summer, we were able to have extra people sourcing retail arbitrage just by virtue of having extra people there over the summer. When we're at our normal staffing level and all things the same, we try to keep it as close to a balance as possible. And that comes back to what we talked about earlier with the pros and cons. The pros of retail arbitrage are the cons of wholesale. The cons of retail arbitrage are the pros of wholesale, and online arbitrage kind of fits right in the middle, being kind of a middle ground between the two.
Craig Lancaster asks, with buying liquidation stuff, do you think Amazon will accept that as a legit invoice?
For getting ungated, not a chance. If you're talking about for authenticity, this has always been an issue with liquidation. You absolutely have to know who you're buying from. You have to know that they can provide you a chain of custody, and much more often than not, this is going to be much more dangerous than any discount that you're going to get on the goods is worth. Um, we do a very limited amount of liquidation, and it's only from sources who we know personally, who can provide us invoices and trace the goods back with the chain of custody back to the manufacturer. Um, Very, very, very risky to do liquidation outside of that, with the exception of something like 888 lots, where those goods can be traced directly back to Amazon. Um, so yeah, I would say very, very tenuously, if those goods can be traced back, and I mean, you can't just take their word for it. You have to know those goods can be traced back. Um, then, then yes, but tenuously.
Tashima Lindsay asked, to stay competitive, are there certain categories that you guys feel will be better without all the issues?
Well, the issues might be what make the category better. If you have a category that is without any issues, there's every likelihood that everybody is going to flock to that category in droves, and then it's a matter of time before that category becomes as dead as toys in Q1, 2, and 3. Possible to do it, but so much work involved, and that is really not worth the profit at the end of the day. So, will there be categories where there are fewer issues? I don't think so. I think there will be different issues. Sean can speak to. He does a tremendous business in grocery. We really don't do a lot of grocery because it goes against our business model. We're trying to raise our average sale price because our initial average sale price comes from the DVD category, and like Sam said, we had a pretty low average sale price. So we're trying to raise the amount per sale and lower the number of units per sale. Grocery turns a lot quicker than a lot of the categories that we sell in, but again, at that lower average sale price and with more processing involved, we have to factor other things into that processing. We have a warehouse that has to get factored into the cost of goods for everything we sell. We have, a whole staff of employees that has to get factored into the cost of goods of everything we sell. So there are issues in any category. Shoes, as much as they have the higher average sale price and it's so much easier to stay wide in shoes, you have a higher return rate in shoes than you do in a lot of the other categories. It's much more difficult to source in shoes. You have more limited information in shoes than you have in any other category. So I don't think there's a category without issues, and if one suddenly cropped up that was that easy to sell in, I would probably avoid it like the plague because everybody would be flocking there, and it'd be too crowded. I think Sean may have had something to add.
Yeah, definitely. I don't waste my time with bundles for the same reason that they don't. And you can bundle in most categories, but creating those products. That was a question, right? About bundling.
Well, it was about whether or not there would be, if we think there's a category that has fewer issues there that won't have all of these issues in the future.
Okay, because I've seen a lot of those in the chat. Yeah, so, grocery, everything that he said, but, what I do want to add is that, grocery does move a lot faster, than shoes, but it has its own problems, and, you're going to have those issues with whatever you're selling in, whether, it's books or shoes or groceries or, next time, there could be a lot of restrictions on grocery items. And like I said earlier, there's a lot of problems with, people selling items in health and beauty with ingredients that are really big no-nos on Amazon, but you really can't read every rule on Amazon. I think most people watching have not read the list of restricted items that Amazon puts out. It's something like a 70-page document that's nothing but item after item and ingredients that they don't accept. And most people don't know that information, and that's why we condensed it into things that people may actually buy. So these same kind of rulings may come down for another category next time, and you really don't know. But the best thing is to just spread everything out and work across all the categories that you are approved in, and don't. I think the big thing from this webinar is to not put all your eggs in one basket. Don't spend all your money on a single product or a single brand or a single category. Spread that out as wide as you can.
You believe in doing a wholesale as a way more of us should be heading towards?
I think wholesale can be a very valuable part of everyone's business model. There are problems with wholesale, just like there are problems with every type of arbitrage. There are going to be pros and cons. Would I be abandoning one business model to jump to wholesale because I think wholesale is going to be easier or more viable? I would. You have other issues entirely with wholesale. For one thing, a lot of wholesalers sell directly to Amazon. The ones that don't sell to Amazon, many of them don't want their products on Amazon. And buying wholesale from companies that are against Amazon sellers is very different from buying retail arbitrage and online arbitrage. There's no story that you can give a wholesaler where they won't notice that order showed up on Amazon, within a week or a month of you getting the goods in, and if you're spending time trying to hide that fact, it doesn't end up being a good use of your time. Wholesale has a ton of possibility, and there are a tremendous opportunity for the brands that won't sell to Amazon and are looking for the right seller to put their product on Amazon. But I don't think that I certainly would not abandon anything that we're doing now to move heavier into wholesale based on this. When wholesale makes sense for you, and that's the other thing you have to know, you have to have the right amount of capital for wholesale to make sense, because you're suddenly going to have lower margins and fewer money turns, and that's not something that's going to work unless you're capitalized enough. When wholesale makes sense, absolutely, it should be a part of your business model. That comes right back to having that balance that we talk about very constantly. But a seesaw effect of jumping from one side to the other side is not going to help you in my opinion.
Dan Caradonna. Some of these brands like Cuisinart and All Clad are unfulfillable and seem to be restricted now for us, and we have no notifications of it. Where do we go to see items we are restricted on now?
The best answer sadly continues to be add a product. There's not a ton that you can do if Amazon decides that you can't sell an item. You do have a possible argument if you have a considerable amount of inventory to get them to give you a free removal order on those goods to get them back to you. But outside of that, the answer, and I know this may not be the preferable answer, but the answer is to get the inventory back, find some way to recoup, whatever capital can be recouped depending on how long you've had the inventory, and move on, get that capital into products that'll turn again.
Don't see any more questions.
Okay, so I think we're just a little bit over the hour here, maybe a little under because we got started a few minutes late. I'll go ahead and take over Sam's job because his mic is so terrible, and I'll thank Sean for his help and his participation. Sean is an asset. He has a tremendous amount of knowledge, and he shares it very willingly. I'm going to add his links to the YouTube description for anyone who didn't get them from the chat. So if you're watching this on replay, you'll be able to get them there. I hope you are all able to get some good information from this. We really want to continue to grow this wonderful opportunity that we've had on Amazon, and continue to build a positive and strong community, because I don't know another business that has the opportunity that we have on Amazon. I definitely don't know another business that has the community that we have had here on Facebook of sellers and competitors coming together to help one another out. Sam, do you want to add anything? Sean, do you want to add anything?
No, I think that about covers it. If anybody has any questions about specific restrictions or anything we talked about, just reach out to me on Facebook, or that's about it. If you want to look at my restricted brand list, completely free, SeanMayo.com, or free Amazon training. We got tons of good stuff in there.
Sam is sign languaging to thank you all for coming, and to let you know also, please feel free to call us. You can obviously find our information on the website or email us. And that being said, keep making the best you can out of the amazing opportunity that we have in front of us, and keep your head above water.